Tomorrow may be full of unknowns, and unknowns may cause fear or anxiety. But look at where you are now and the long road you've taken to get here. You have everything you need today to overcome the obstacles of tomorrow. For the most part, the world around us will happen regardless of whether or not we're happy with it. Therefore, for our own well-being and peace of mind, it is better to learn acceptance and personal responsibility than to resist life and try to control the uncontrollable.
We have everything we need to overcome the obstacles of today and tomorrow, even though you might fear, doubt, even though we might fear the unknown, or having anxiety, we have everything that we need to overcome it.
An often overlooked source of day-to-day suffering is hidden within our expectations. Through expectation, we look to the future and invest our well-being in the outcome of some world event or in the behaviors of other people, hoping for them to go one way or another. When these expectations are not met, we suffer.
Learn acceptance and personal responsibility. I talk about this all the time when, it's alright to experience a low vibrational emotion, but it's just about how you finish or end with it. Do you walk around in this low vibe, or at some point do you say, okay, it is what it is, and rise up to acceptance on the frequency scale? And you at least got to get to that point before you can get to reasoning it out, logic. So this season I practice walking in love, choosing not to walk around in a low vibe, but rising back up and coming up with solutions in a higher frequency, versus putting a lot of energy into a lower frequency. Solution. When you put a lot of energy into coming up with a solution in the low frequency, somebody gonna get shot, somebody gonna get stabbed, something gonna happen, somebody gonna get cussed out, somebody gonna lose self-control, somebody might say something that they don't really want to say. So that's a part of emotional maturity, what they call emotional intelligence. They talked about acceptance, and the other word was responsibility. Your ability to respond to situations and circumstances in your life. Another thing, we talk about trying to control the uncontrollable, right? The only thing that's promised in life is change. So you might wake up and think, oh man, life is boring, right? Just another day, another dollar type mentality. But when you realize that the only thing promises change at the same time, because you might be always complaining about, man, there's always something. Well, when you go just get used to it and just say, this is the way life is, and get into it, instead of waiting for life to get to a certain point, stay the same way, understand it's always going to change. And you can take the more positive route of a mindset and understand that that just means that life is exciting. Life is new every day. So you ain't got no reason to be bored, because there's always new opportunities throughout the day that you can't take advantage of at different times of the day. It's opportunities that you can't take advantage at certain times of the year, but in other times of the year you can. It's opportunities you can barely take every year. So when the year comes to take that opportunity, it's better to be aware that, hey, there's opportunities out here versus feeling like everything's the same. after you get to a certain point, coming up from being a child to a semi-adult at 18 to 21, you're not really a true adult yet. You expected, the expectation is there. Now we about to see if you're really gonna be able to hold your own 2 feet and be responsible. Everything that was taught to you is going to be tested at this point. But of course, at 30, that's when we're considered a true adult. That's why everybody go through a reality check leading up to 30 and spilling over into 30 if you ain't do too well with the transition or the reality that you were supposed to accept as an adult, and how a complete adult responsibility to the situations in life at that point. So resisting life or trying to control it, sometimes it's better to go with the flow than against the flow. Always. They act as forces of change that leverage the resources they have at their disposal to influence the world around them, right around you, right now. Life is happening now.
A bad situation isn't necessarily their fault, and they look to find ways to improve, to go from 0 to 1, and then from 1 to 2.
Being creatures of intent that act upon the world, that is not a victim of the world, but acts upon the world. The world is not happening to one person simply and only, but they are happening to the world. So when things go wrong, that's why they take ownership in their situation. Not everybody's. Nobody's saying someone has to be Superman or try to carry the weight of everybody in the world, the whole world. But just in your situations, and as much as you can affect in the lives of others around you.
In contrast, the negative person seems to have trained themselves to find reasons why they can't do something. Often this behavior is entirely unconscious. They see obstacles in adversity, excuses in chaos, and fear in the future. To the outside world, they seem to be surrounded by forces that impose themselves upon them. When things go wrong, they look around them to find things to blame, especially if a bad situation isn't their fault. They find stories to tell themselves that validate their lack of progress, well-being, and fulfillment.
If you're a person that thinks negative most of the time, you always try to find a reason or reasons why you can't do something new or something that you just simply have to continue to keep doing as far as a responsibility in order to succeed. And also feel like there's always a force or somebody that's going to be imposing or working against them. Want to find things to blame, situations, and stories to tell themselves to validate their lack of progress, well-being, and fulfillment. Don't be inflexible with your beliefs if reality is showing you something different. Don't let years go by and you still caught up in anger or misdirection or going about things the wrong way because you still haven't accepted the reality that keep playing out against your beliefs or what you believe. Nobody's saying change something of a belief that you will accomplish something or something positive like that. But it's about the how. And then overall, if you do have an unrealistic goal or dream, You need to listen to the reality of that life is showing you, and shift your beliefs or your biases or misconceptions that were poorly formed. Realize that the process is not perfect. You're not perfect. I thought about having unconditional love for life. And do I have it or could I have it? I thought, okay, so if everything had to be perfect in my life in order for me to have unconditional love for life, that would be weak. So since that conclusion is not hard to come to, it's not hard to come to the ultimate conclusion that I do have unconditional love for life, taking the good with the bad. Because we know that there's always going to be obstacles and change, which a lot of people consider change to be something that's negative, especially if it's unexpected, abrupt, cost you possessions, or cost you to change. It's all about what you're willing to give in exchange for what you want. Don't kill Abel. Just go and do the things you need to do to get what you want. Make the proper sacrifice. The proper sacrifice or the proper sacrifices in life. Not being driven to make decisions primarily based on pleasure, comfort, and also not be influenced to make decisions primarily based on fear and avoiding pain as well. It's about being efficient, not wasting our energy, and when you recognize what areas you're strong in and what areas you can be thankful for, that helps you to live a more positive life, because you can always find reasons to be in a good mood, vibe high, but then you recognize the things that you do need to work on, and you say, okay, well, let me not put so much energy into these areas that I don't have too many problems in, or that's easy for me, because I'm so grateful that these areas I don't have a lot of problems in. But I can focus this energy into my problem areas, then maybe my life could balance out a little bit better. Maybe I could be a little bit more efficient with my energy and balance out even as a person. Because like opposites attract, we be attracted to people that's like us, but primarily we be attracted to people that's, the opposites. And a lot of times we learn things from each other. And so even if you're working on your opposites or your weak points, you already, even without another person, you could be working on being whole by working on your weaknesses. The things that you probably aspire or admire in other people, right? Because they can do something that man, like, you ain't that strong. But acceptance helps us accept the things that we can't control or change. So on one end, one person takes responsibility for the things that they can control. And on the other end, the other person looks for things outside of itself to blame, outside of itself, instead of blaming itself. And closes the doorway to personal development, ownership or non-ownership. The person that's on the negative side of this, not only do they not take ownership of the things that they control, they also take on ownership in a negative way for things that are out of their control. So they push blame away, but then it's because they're taking ownership of, they unrealistically take ownership for being responsible for just more than just themselves or their own situation. So realizing that if you just, or realizing that the only thing you have to worry about is your own situation and be the best that you can be, that will put you in a position to being the best person that you could be and being where you're supposed to be if you're not cowering away, but you're facing your fears or you're doing what you're supposed to do in a balanced way, right? And just take responsibility for what you can do. When you run into those that's not take responsibility, you can't do nothing about that. If a person is not in place when you get there and you show up, as long as you did your part, that's all you can control. Personal responsibility. Personal responsibility, not universal responsibility. So I like that video. I like that. Talks about a lot of things that I talk about on the regular, things that I'm into. As far as acceptance, especially, I'm big on. It's alright to visit these lower emotions or vibrations, negative ones, but it's just all about not living there. At least coming up to acceptance. I guess it's like come up for air, man. You might start out mad, angry, down, depressed, frustrated, but at some point you have to let it go and rise up to acceptance. It is what it is. What can I do about it? What can I not do about it? And after you decide what action you're going to take, you shouldn't be worried about it anymore to even be down on a low frequency, living down there and handling everything down there. And then you got kids and you got relationship there. That's affecting your kids' relationship and your whole life. Your direction, whether you're manifesting good or bad. So acceptance helps us to deal with the things that we can't control, either at all or for the time being.
Nothing wrong with it, but you see, if all we do is doubt, and we'll never have nothing. It begins with a thought or feeling. Will we speak or ask a question, or keep it to ourselves, but show it in our expressions? Blow up in our face without communication. We can use our strengths, better respect on each other. This is a stage where things progress, differences work through, and we grow, maintain, chapter after chapter. Rags to riches, playing a long game. Ain't in a rush, can't move it faster, less we handle the basics and go above and beyond. Yeah.
For the Stoics, their personal path to happiness is grounded in a few core principles. 1. The ability to view ourselves, the world, and its people objectively, and accept their nature as it is. 2. The discipline to prevent ourselves from being controlled by the desire for pleasure or the fear of pain and suffering. 3. Making the distinction between what is within our power to influence and what is not, and then using this information to decide what can be acted upon and to accept what can't. The concept of control is core to practical Stoic philosophy. When understood, it allows us to clearly see the areas of our life that we are able to influence and those which are outside the reach of our control. This, by extension, gives us the ability to stop wasting our time and energy on what we can't control and learn to accept it, and at the same time helps us focus on the areas of our life we can control. One of the greatest tools for a happy life is personal responsibility. Ownership over the things within our control, our thoughts, beliefs, and actions, opens up paths to personal development that are otherwise closed when we point fingers and blame.
The source The source of our day-to-day suffering that we overlook is expectations. The further away our expectations are away from reality, the greater the suffering. That's why you have to have real expectations. You can have dreams. Everyone has dreams. But then those dreams can be an illusion or delusion. Because a dream is something that you envision, something that you desire or want. Not all are sound. And so sometimes if you can have high expectations or certain unrealistic expectations, and then life is not playing out based on your idealistic perspective, now you're depressed and live a lifestyle of depression. Started out with an unrealistic view of reality. Same thing people with PTSD go through to a high extent, a high percentage. I like what he said, better consider, I guess, the effects that your expectations have on your well-being. Because you might be able to have a more happier life if you just adjust your expectations a little bit. So if you realize what it's saying, the reality of everyone's life is going to be based on how you perceive your life or your reality, how you respond to it. There's people with lives that are more plush and have more benefits than others that have less benefits. And that might be just based on perception. And then there's a lot of it that's based on just pure facts. Like somebody being born in poverty and somebody not. Or somebody having opportunities, even though they was born in poverty, and those that don't have opportunities or as much as the other person. The person with more opportunities could be perceiving his life as negative, not enjoying their life. But then the other person that don't have as much could be enjoying their life and the challenges and the path.
Never get enough of that. I realize that it's like, it doesn't stop. It keeps calling you. It's like a drug.
It's a hamster wheel.
It's a hamster wheel. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you're never satisfied. But if you place your importance on this, which is like appreciation, love, it's like that is enough.
It happens. You feel like you're alone, and you feel like it's only you, and you're in your bubble.
I thought it would be good to be rich and famous. It would be good to be the opposite of this. It would be good to have stuff. It'd be good to have money. It'd be good to be invited to the party. Well, I've been invited. I've been in. We're having this chat in a private Swish members club in East London. It's super cool. There's bare brick walls. Everyone's double good looking. But I've been inside now. I've seen the other side of the looking glass. It ain't fucking worth it. It's not good. It don't feed your soul. I still feel empty inside.
And I got on a prescription when I was really young to help with my anxiety and depression, and I still take it today, and I have no shame in that.
I mean, if you get rich, how many seats can you sit your ass in at one time? I mean, how many seats you got? One seat at a time. So life's goal is a comfortable seat, quiet, comfortable, awakened seat. That's it.
So you're saying that having a certain amount of money doesn't bring happiness at all? Because I would actually disagree with that.
You can disagree with it if you want to.
Yeah.
But money has nothing to do with your happiness.
I give in to the lesser fight. My body aches to be satisfied. My weakness comes and goes.
Being appreciative of the present. Like he was saying, sometimes death or negativity could add a spark to life. It could keep you on your toes if you look at it the right way or use it the right way. Let the negativity keep you on your toes. If you already have a story to tell, you already have plenty of motivation from the negativity of the past. So if someone does something today or tomorrow that if you consider negative or resistance, you should use it as motivation, not demotivation. Don't let the negatives demotivate you, but allow it to motivate you, the negatives of the past and of the present. And let your idealism restructure it over and over again until you realize them. Let your idealism be your inspiration, the things that you shoot for. Let that be your inspiration. Be inspired by what you aspire to do, even though you have all the obstacles. The negatives just make it all worth the while. The obstacles, the adversity, but you don't have to live in that mentality and make it worse than what it is. If something negative is going to happen, it's going to happen without my help, as long as I can help it, where I'm not going to add to it. By speaking and thinking negatively, having mental blockages and blockages in my language, your perception of the problem is often the cause of suffering, not the problem itself. Because if the reality is that we will always have problems, why would not being a problem be a solution? It won't be. Or trying to get life to a position to where you don't have any more problems is unrealistic. So, thus dealing with and how you perceive the problem is the cause of suffering or not suffering. Like you were saying, everybody's life is different, and what may work for me might not work for you, and vice versa. So you always have to know yourself and pay attention to your experiences, so that way you know what the universe or God is telling you. Because even if you don't get into astrology, numerology, psychology, physics, spirituality, religion, or whatever, you still have to pay attention to the lessons life is showing you through relationships, through experiences, circumstances, through limitations, and through areas that you don't have limitations in at different times in your life. Because you might have access and unlimited access in one season to something or a skill or some part of you or time for something. But in another season, that is very limited or none. Positive people tend to look and see opportunity in negatives or problems or opportunity or pathways and chaos or adversity. You know, for the future, we can see pathways and opportunities instead of blockages and limitations all the time. Are you a half glass full type of person, or are you a half glass empty type of person? You can pay attention to your own emotions on a regular basis, your own thought patterns, and the conclusions that you make about things, especially when things go negative or things not working out in favor, even if it's something with your cell phone or something in traffic or something you're trying to push yourself into that you've never done or trying to figure yourself out. How you respond and how you deal with those things, whether you're stagnant or moving forward, that's going to help you to determine